G'day, ZiggyD here, and in today's video I want to talk a bit about how and why I respecced out of blood magic and into a mana based build on my Infernal Marauder. So you guys can also consider this a bit of a build update for those of you who have been following along with this build, but also for you guys who are just playing a blood magic build and are wondering, whether you should consider it or how you can actually go about respecking out of blood magic yourself. Hopefully this will help you guys out as well. So, firstly, let's start with why I actually respecced out of blood magic. Now, I have to say, I really like blood magic, so this was a hard decision for me. Pretty much from the point you get blood magic, which to get blood magic, pretty much all you need is either more life regen than your actual skill costs, or enough life gain on hit, usually just from the gem, to support your actual main attacking skill, and then you can get blood magic. From that point onwards, once you get this keystone, you never really need to worry about your mana again, because there's just no such thing as going out of mana when you're on blood magic, really, unless you've completely screwed up your build. So, I really like blood magic. However, blood magic does have a few drawbacks. The main one, actually, probably the one and only, but really significant drawback to blood magic, is you cannot use percentage-based auras when you are on blood magic. So, for example, hatred, determination, and even purity all reserve a percentage of your mana. Now, hatred by default reserves 30% of your mana. I've got quite a few mana reducing. I've got some nodes, and I've got the mana reduction gem put on it as well. So that brings it down to 20%. But even, let's say, with 20%, 20% reservation on my mana, for example, let's just go here and put that on my mana, is only a small amount of mana in total, and reserving a section of your mana, even 20% of your mana, isn't a big deal. However, if I were to reserve 20% of my life, that is 20% of my survivability instantly gone. Now, obviously that's also quite a lot as well, because I'm reserving 20% of 3k instead of 20% of 600, so the actual loss that you're taking from changing over to that is quite a big deal. So yeah, if you're a life-based build and you get your survivability from life, you cannot run percentage auras ever. Now, I can run things like Grace, for example, which are, they reserve an integer amount. Now, for example, 235 mana reserved on Grace, as a section of my mana, would actually be quite a bit of mana, but as a proportion of my life, it's nothing. It's very minimal. So I can run things like Grace, and I can run things like Anger on my life, no problems at all, losing only a small amount of survivability. However, I just can't do that with those percentage-based auras. So that was the main reason I did it. Now, the two auras that I primarily wanted to run were Hatred and Determination. Now, there is also Purity, which is another percentage reserved one, which I can run interchangeably with Determination, but my resists are currently overcapped anyway, 77 flat there for all of those. So, I haven't felt like I've needed Purity too much, but I've much more needed that armor, because, with Grace running at the moment, my armor physical reduction is 36%, which is quite low, and that is because I have, armor here with no bonus armor on it, gloves here with no bonus, like only 50 bonus armor there, 4 bonus armor on my boots, and like 11% increased on my helmet. So pretty rubbish all round. Look, my helmet almost has as much armor as my chest piece. That's how rubbish my gear is in terms of armor at the moment. However, I've been able to survive and almost thrive in maps, because now that I've switched over to mana, I'm able to run Determination, bringing my reduction up to 46% with Grace. So that's about enough. That's about enough to be fairly comfortable. Obviously, I'll get a lot more once I actually upgrade my gear, because Determination is going to scale off that upgrade as well. So that will be pretty good. I should be, I expect to be over 60% once I get some good gear. But for now, with endurance charges and things like that, I can run pretty well with those. Now, the other one was Hatred, and the reason for going Hatred was, since I am a physical-based build, Hatred scales off your physical damage as a percentage conversion. Now, my actual damage, my physical damage, if I go into offense here, per hit is 700 to 1100, so quite high. When I activate, when I activate Hatred, I get that extra 300 to 500 cold damage there. Pretty significant jump up. As you can see here, we'll deactivate Hatred. DPS goes from 500 to an extra 1000 DPS there with with the extra cold damage from Hatred. So that's pretty well worth running as well. And again, as my physical damage increases with that as well, that's only going to get better and better as well. But, you know, maybe I'll quality my career a little bit later and do that as well. So that's the why part of things. Hopefully that explains that. You know, if you feel like you need to run a percentage-based aura like Purity, Determination, or Hatred, and you are Blood Magic, then it is worthwhile considering going over to a mana-based build. But let's talk about if you can actually do that and how to go about doing that if you can. Now, the first thing I considered when trying to make this decision was whether I can leech mana effectively in this build. Now, mana leech gems are one way of doing this, but that takes up a slot, and a pretty useful slot in my build as well that I don't want to give up. So the other way is to get mana leached from physical damage. Now, I did this initially when I first switched over just for testing purposes with the Worm's Melt Belt. This costs like 1 chaos in most leagues, so it's a very cheap way of trying this out, and that gives you 2% mana leech. Now, I thought, because I have such high physical damage, that even 1% mana leech would be enough to cover. And in fact, that is the case. I got this 1% physical attack damage leech back as mana ring here, and I'm pretty good with only a few other little things that I'll go over. So with that really high physical damage, if you have really high physical damage, then maybe 1 or 2% mana leech will be enough to cover your skills. You might have to get a bit more if your skills are a bit more expensive, or if you don't have as much physical damage. The other way, if you are an elemental based build, you will probably have to consider the mana leech gem, since that can scale off all types of damage, not just physical damage. Now, the other thing I knew I had to get was a little bit of extra mana. Now, I have a reasonable amount of intelligence since I need that for some gems, so that helps a little bit. You get 1+ mana per 2 intelligence there, so I'm getting like 60 to 70 extra mana from my intelligence, which is a nice little boost. I'm up to 600, which I've found to be about the perfect amount for this character here. A little bit more or a little bit less, so I've probably got a leniency of maybe 50 mana max, but 600 feels pretty good. Now, to do that, I just got a ring here which has 30 intelligence, which is pretty helpful, but also the 47 to mana, and that's pretty much all I needed. So in terms of gearing to change over from Blood Magic to a mana-based build, all you need is 1% leech with this build. As I said, you'll have to rate this out depending on what build you're playing, and then a bit of extra mana, as long as your intelligence is reasonably high, around 100 to 120 to 140 mark would be nice. So the other thing I had to do was change just a few things in the passive tree. Now, the first thing I wanted to do was get these mana reduction nodes here, which are nice and close to the build. Also close to an intelligence node here, which I needed anyway. I think I already had it even. So 10% reduction on your mana reserved ones is really, really good, and also on your life ones just gives you a bit of extra survivability. So that's pretty nice as well. The other ones I needed to get was in the dual start area. I needed to get these mana nodes. These two aren't too important, but this one here with 40% increased mana regeneration rate was pretty good. Now, that 1% leech is more than enough for me to sustain Infernal Blow, even with its 70 mana cost, and Leap Slam to a reasonable extent if I'm Leap Slamming between enemies, and Glacial Hammer quite easily because it's quite cheap considering the amount of physical damage it does. So the leech covers those things. However, things like Warlord's Mark, my totems, my Molten Shells, and even Leap Slam when I'm using it just as a mobility skill, I needed that regeneration for. Now, 40% mana regeneration was not enough. Now, that took me quite a bit of the way. However, I also had to run Clarity. Now, I'm running Clarity at level 4, which is what I recommend stopping at for most builds that are, not super mana hungry, because the thing that happens with Clarity is as you level it up, it reserves more and more mana. Now, if I level this up one more, I won't be able to afford my skills correctly, so let's go ahead and activate that. As you can see, with all my auras there, I have 200 mana. That gives me enough room to use my Infernal Blow a couple times while the leech has room to take effect, because that's important as well, because leech takes time. So I had to run Clarity. That gives me an extra 5.1 mana per second, which allows me to Leap Slam around pretty much indefinitely with that extra 40% and the base mana regeneration. It also allows me to use my Warlord's Mark, not too bad as well. So I only need to use this guy every now and then. It leeches back. And Leap Slam, I can pretty much go around the map before this is going to run out. As you can see, like it almost leeches, it almost regens all the way back, and most of the time I'm going to be leap slamming onto an enemy. My voice just cracked there. That was brutal. So first thing was mana reduction reservation there. That helps with Clarity as well, so that's nice. And the regeneration here. Now, I almost considered, if you find that it's not quite enough, like you're unable to gear up just enough to switch over, then you can get things like this mana reduced cost node here, or Down here there is 3 actually pretty good ones. We've got 5, 5 and 10% there, and you can even pick up that armor as well for an extra bonus from that. So there's a few things you can do in the tree, but you don't need to do that much. So there was a little bit of risk. I had to take a little bit of a leap of faith. I had to respec a few points. What I actually gave up for a while was these damage nodes out here. I had to respec those 3 so I could pick up these guys, and so I could pick up these guys, you know, with an extra level. So that was pretty good, and now I'm able to support those. I'm able to get my armor up to 46% just with my auras, you know, without any endurance charges and things like that. I'm able to still run all of my skills without any problems, and I'm getting extra DPS from Hatred, which is only going to go up as well as I improve other things, and same with my armor. So pretty good stuff. It was a good change. A little bit bumpy at first, you know, as I said when I was first trying this one, but once I got everything sorted out, once I found that nice balancing point, it was very, very worthwhile trading over from Blood Magic. Essentially, I'm exactly the same as I was now. I didn't lose anything except a little bit of damage in the passive tree, which I can pick up again later. You know, I had to sink only a few points into that, and I've had to, you know, just get a few stats on my gear. So I've lost only a few little pieces from that, but overall I've gained much back more. So that's pretty good. Worth considering if you're playing this build or any other Blood Magic build, whether you can switch over to mana, and you know, hopefully this helps you with figuring out how to do so. Anyway, I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.